Thanks for that introduction, Graham. I'm Nikki, and yes, I have had a long history with Sydenham Primary School as an EMAG teacher originally over 20 years ago, and working for EAL services in Warwickshire. Now I'm still in EAL services in Warwickshire, but I'm governor in the school and do lots of regular visits and support them with training and all things EAL really. Um, so our area that Graham had asked us to look into was, or to talk about, was organising classroom talk and how we encourage all learners in terms of their oracy development, which of course is absolutely key. Um, as Graham witnessed when he came for the reaccreditation, Sydenham you can tell the minute you walk into the school, and I'm very proud to say this, it's just a very happy, friendly, open environment. Um, you can see this as you're walking around. You can see, and not just seeing the displays and things like that, but also interacting with people in schools, that this is a place where diversity is celebrated. There are over 20 languages spoken, and this school has always had quite a sort of hovering around the 45% mark in terms of EAL learners as a percentage of the total school population. And one key strategy that the head and SLT use are the quality marks. So you're thinking, why is she showing us UNICEF when we're here for EQM? Well, again, we use quality marks to be able to have that whole school approach, that top-down approach, and talking about the ethos of the school. The EQMs helped us, but also the UNICEF Convention of Rights for the Child, the rights respecting frameworks that we use. And it's given us, as I say, a really inclusive environment where all children are respected and feel safe, valued, and secure. All the rights are linked to the curriculum topics and made explicit to the children. And as I said, this really works to support children learning EAL because it gives them that safe environment to take risks with learning language. Um, so here are some specific areas, and I'm sure some of these strategies are not new to some of you, but putting oracy at the heart of classroom learning is something that has been going on for many years in this school. And it's also something I see quite a lot with teachers when I go in and do observations, is this growth mindset that they also model to the children. So I remember just being in the in a classroom recently and seeing that the children have been drawing um, growth mindset heroes, and explicitly talking about the attributes of those heroes that make them growth mindset heroes. So again, it's putting the children in a learning environment which is truly inclusive and truly promotes oracy. So often we talk about collaborative activities when we're talking about EAL, how well they work. And of course, we've got a range. I think everybody here is possibly aware of the A to E codes that are used for EAL language proficiency. And so these collaborative activities are really thought at the planning stage, because they're activities that they're not just talking, they necessitate talk. So the children have to talk in order for them to achieve the task when they're working in a pair or in a group. So interaction and collaboration is an absolute must. It's using not just the language of the topic, it's also using the discourse systems of negotiation to complete the task. But of course, there are a range of levels, and so you need to be thinking ahead, and teachers do in planning for what scaffolding resources, what visual are they going to use, what's speaking frames, what talking frames they might need to support the children at different degrees of proficiency to actually do those collaborative talk activities. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with these resources, Racing to English and Widget. We're very lucky in Warwickshire because Widget is a Warwickshire company, and actually all schools have Widget. And what they provide are lots and lots of editable templates where you can quickly create games, sort of like track games and board games and card games and dominoes games. And you can actually put visuals and keywords that are linked to the curriculum. So with those earlier A to B, those new to English, early acquisition, early developing competence children, they're included in when they, particularly for when we're talking about new arrivals that come into the school, having that enhanced oral interaction with good model speakers is really key. And it's very difficult sometimes, isn't it, with the curriculum to find those times and those spaces to be able to put that in. But teachers are doing their best to do that. And so yes, we've got quite a bank of those sort of resources as well that we're using for developing that oral interaction. And it's also a very welcoming thing for particularly for new arrivals coming into the system, and having that opportunity to actually play simple low anxiety games in English. And it might be covering a curriculum topic word, or it might be just simply communicative English there. I'm not going to talk too much about talk partners because that's something that my colleague Rosina is going to be talking about when she pops on with her slides about talk partners. And there is talking partners, which she's also going to be talking about. So talking partners is some training that I delivered in the school, and I've done some updated training as well. And I'll let Rosina talk more about that when she comes to talk to you. And a lot of modelling is needed, as we know, because children really need to be able to see language, have it spelled out to them almost. It needs to be something that is always being brought to their attention. So in order for them to be able to use language, they need to be able to see it in context, and they need to have their attention drawn to it. So there's a lot of modelling that goes on, both oral and written. And things like strategies like recasting and think alouds, chunking the information down using graphic organizers, this sort of methodology, which we know is, they talk about EAL pedagogy, but actually it's quality first teaching if we're honest about it. These are things that we are regularly using, and I would say a lot of children, not just EAL children, benefit from these strategies. We're very lucky to have an EAL teacher who is able to deliver EAL interventions, one-to-ones and group interventions for targeted children who need specific support. And one thing that she does really effectively is the pre-teaching strategy. I saw something, oh, sorry, I don't quite know what that's popped up for. I saw something recently when I was in there my last visit, that she was working with a child from year 5, a Romanian child. The topic was World War One, and she was helping him build the context of that subject, because context is also very hugely important, particularly in a history topic, and building that context with pictures, with visuals, tapping into what he already knew, and then co-constructing a substitution table, so that he's actually effectively putting together a resource that he can use in the classroom. And that gives him a level of autonomy as well when he comes to using that as a speaking and a writing framework. So substitution tables are something, it's an area that we have identified that we want to spread that a bit more widely now with some other teachers, but some of the teachers in the school are using that really effectively. Um, Vocabulary building, I think we know that limited vocabulary is a constant issue with EAL learners, even those at apparently advanced levels. And we know that research says that on average, EAL learners have a smaller English vocabulary than when monolingual peers, as you might expect. So teachers are building a vocabulary extension activities into their daily practice. There's, you know, the word a week, and there's lots of word study. Um, and that sort of brings me on to this, because there's quite a lot of word study in another framework that we use, as again, um, thinking about frameworks that help us put a top-down whole school approach to oracy. Some of you may be familiar with the Pike-Corbett Talk for Writing frameworks, but they are really effective for all children, but particularly for EAL learners, because they are basically, it's very powerful because this is based on how children actually do learn naturally, you know, imitating necessary language, are particularly useful before reading and writing. And so there's lots of co-construction. You see big sheets of paper on flip charts in Sydenham, where the teachers have been co-constructing using symbols, drawings, writing. Rosina, I witnessed one of her lessons in the early years, about based on the book The Zoo, and using the Talk for Writing framework methodology and approaches. It was amazing. So and the clearly I was there observing EAL new starters that had arrived in her class, and they were very easily able to engage because of all the realia, the real objects, the choral repetition, lots of modeling. And the beauty of it is, well, it's using real books. It's not using the cat sat on a mat kind of phonics, very dry and slightly odd context that you find in phonics books. So I know that we've got limited time. I'm happy to take questions, or shall we just move on now to Rosina? You've got a slide, Rosina, so I'm going to stop sharing mine. And
thank you.
Rosina?
Can you?
I'll share my screen now. Okay.
Did you want to add anything to what I said, Rosina?
No, I think you've set the context really, really well for this, really. So, and hopefully this will address one of the questions that came up in the chat about how we support children to maintain their home languages as well.
Yeah,
so this is,
I didn't add that because I knew you were talking about that. So
brilliant. Yeah. So
but could you mention about talking partners as
absolutely,
well?
Yeah. So our talk partners, as Nikki said, are always mixed achievement pairs, and they're always randomly selected because it's kind of those that decision that we made to randomly select children to be talk partners is based on you know, the Shirley Clark work, that methodology that again informs our teaching. But we do sometimes adjust. So for example, when I had a new arrival who was a Russian speaker in year 2, she sat with another Russian speaker to support her in the first few weeks. So we sometimes sort of adjust them, but fundamentally we do try and keep the talk partners random. Talking partners is an intervention that runs with usually with a teaching assistant, for 3 or 4 children at a time, and it's used as a way of practicing particular language structures, like for example the past tense. So there's an opening activity for each session where they will play a game that involves using the past present, the past simple, or the past continuous, or it might be that they have a shared activity that they then make into a book that they then use to rehearse that language structure. And then they will sometimes they'll sometimes pre-teach in those sessions. So Nikki's talked about PyCorbit already. So one of the things that our Talking Partners groups are doing this week is practicing, we're doing the gingerbread man in reception at the moment, practicing the PyCorbit text that everybody else is learning as well, or that they'll be learning with everybody else in class. So that kind of hopefully gives you a bit of a context. Now this is Daphne. She's now fluent in English and Turkish. So, but she was talking, this was last year when she was in year 2 in my class, but she came in reception as a new arrival. She was always clearly full of ideas. So she drew a lot at first to communicate her ideas, and we gave her in reception lots of different media and ways of expressing herself, because she was obviously quite locked in, because she was as you'll realize from listening to her English, her Turkish was really strong when she came, really developed. Her story language in Turkish was amazing as well. So she came as a new arrival, and this is her talking about, well, really giving advice to teachers about what they should do. So I'll let her speak for herself.
Hello, teachers, and I'm from Turkey, and I'm gonna help you what you should do if another person from another country doesn't know how to speak English. So I think what you should do is like ask them what language they speak. So, and if there's a child or a teacher which speaks the same language, maybe you could send that child to that person, and maybe they could like understand what they're saying and teach them, and then when they like understand the language English, maybe they can just do anything on their own, like I was.
So what helped you in reception to feel safe and secure when you couldn't speak that much English yet?
So there was a safe thing, something very, very safe, that there were 2 people which spoke Turkish like I do, like Demir and his sister. And so one day I was very sad and I didn't know how to speak, so I just write, and I didn't know how to write, so they brought Demir's sister, and I spoke to her with my language, and she said everything in English to the teachers and me.
So, and how else did you show your ideas? Because at the first, you didn't have the English to express them. You had the Turkish in your head. So how did you show your ideas to the teachers?
I think it was drawing.
Right, so drawing was really important to you, wasn't it?
Yes, and that's why I only learned.
And how have you become so fluent in English? What things have teachers done to help you? What have you done to help yourself?
I've been sent to other teachers to help to speak English. I've been helped with my friends to comfort myself, and now I can talk English, right, which I'm doing right now.
So how does it feel to be bilingual?
Very good, and very exciting.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the teachers about what they should do?
Don't like if there's no other, so
What if I ask you a question in English, perhaps in reception, and you only spoke a little bit of English? What would you need to help you to get your ideas together?
So I think I would need a friend to say my feelings and say the answer of the question.
You talk to a friend first,
Yes.
and that helps you to practice.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Like
Yes.
talk partners.
And if I don't know that language, and if I don't know how to say that, if I sometimes when I try to say language, I say language. Language.
So does it help to listen to other people and to have a chance to practice what you want to say?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, brilliant. That helps me anyway all the time. I always need to practice what I've got to say anyway. Daphne, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for being my significant other today. Okay, I don't think I've got any more to add really, Graham. She said it all, hasn't she?
Yeah, she has. And when I visited your school, I not only had the pleasure of meeting her, but I met her mum and dad too, didn't I?
Yeah.
And they were so happy with the school.